Smoke.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us on 365 Sports. And Mack, for everybody in college athletics and for us to know about when things might pop here with whatever stories, when will you actually officially start a vacation?
Probably we're shooting for the back half of July. So that's at least the goal right now. So always a moving target.
The last time you did that, like a day or two into it, did not the story about Texas and Oklahoma pop?
Yes, it did. Yeah, I don't seem to have great luck when I head to vacation, particularly when I head to New Mexico. But yeah, I remember that well. I remember a call from Scott Drew, and I'm like, no, Scott, that can't be happening. And within an hour, it was happening.
Got a question for you. There was a story late last week about San Diego State, the Mountain West Conference, or whether or not a letter they sent to the conference meant they were leaving and vice versa. It's kind of been a back and forth. My question for you, when in fact somebody does leave a conference, and you've been through that with Texas OU, and even before you were here, of course, it was Missouri and A&M, Colorado, and Nebraska. What, in fact, is taken out from anybody who leaves? The exit fees, you hear about that. Is that money they've already earned or money they would have earned?
Say that again when you reference the exit fees.
Yeah, the exit fees, is that something the conference takes it out of what you would have been given in a TV deal if you leave at a certain time or maybe you miss a deadline? Or is that like, for example, the NCAA tournament money? San Diego State's brought in a bunch of money in recent years. Would that be withheld from them or a program because that's in a 6-year cycle?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and thank you for re-asking it. So, I think, in terms of exit fee monies, that certainly could be deducted from any revenue distribution. Now, we're all aware of what that individual distribution is per institution distribution is in terms of the Mountain West, and that distribution doesn't come close to covering the exit fee. So that particular institution is going to have to find a way to make a payment. Whether it's one-time payment, whether it's over time, I'm not sure how their bylaws are written, but they'll have to find a way to make a payment back to the Mountain West Conference if indeed all of that is true. And then, when you mentioned the basketball units, once an institution officially leaves a conference, they do not have any rights to those basketball units, nor do those basketball units follow them. They end up staying. So whatever San Diego State earned in terms of units, they'll stay with the conference and do not follow them.
So, for example, with Texas and Oklahoma, whatever units they may have earned they've already they're paying their exit. They would not receive those going forward after 24, 23, 24?
That is correct. They forgo those units, and we keep them in that 6-year cycle, right? Inventory of units. Obviously, every year a year drops off, but it's that 6-year window. So yes, you're exactly right.
Would that also count against whatever the exit fee would be, or is that in addition to the exit fee?
Yeah, those are separate. Those aren't part of the exit fee. Now, an institution may argue that they are, but I think a conference would argue that they're not.
Mack, when you look at other possibilities for the Big 12, and we've brought up a couple of programs and you've answered questions about them, but let's look at someone like a San Diego State in a major market. How does that come into play when someone may have a college base or a university campus in a major market, but they really aren't the one that moves the needle? SMU comes to mind. Tulane in New Orleans comes to mind. Is that something you guys discuss much? Although San Diego State now is pretty much what's left because the Chargers have left the city of San Diego. They have just the Padres.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit, but I think what I heard is, look, when you're thinking about conference, membership, future conference membership, and what moves the needle, I think we've looked at them all, and particularly with San Diego State, they've got a great program. I'm not sure, right, whether or not they've been invited, as a potential future member to the Pac-12. I can say assuredly that the Big 12 hasn't officially invited anybody up to this point in time, and so they are a program that certainly should garner attention for all of the reasons why you had mentioned the size of the San Diego market. They've been good, obviously, in men's basketball, but they've also been good in football over the years.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us on Tuesdays, most every Tuesday on 365 Sports. Craig?
Mack, amid all this discussion, there's obviously a lot of things just thrown around, some of them factual, some of them maybe a little off base or whatnot. So I wanted to get a little bit of clarity. I've seen a lot of talk about the Big 12 and their pro rata clause, and as it pertains to the possibility of adding certain programs. Can you explain the Big 12 and where that stands? Is there a pro rata clause for other P5 programs additions? Can you just kind of clear the air there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been out there, but there is a pro rata clause that's tied specifically to other Power 5 or Autonomy 5 institutions. That's not to say that depending upon the right group of five that may not be a possibility. It certainly could. That would be something that we would have to work out with TV partners. But certainly there is the pro rata clause, and gives us an opportunity if we're to expand and add a Power 5 where we can all keep our individual distribution the same and not go backwards.
So there would not be a percentage you lose each of the schools, the 12 schools now. If you brought in a Power 5, that would be made up equally, whatever program, if a program was to join the Big 12 Power 5 school?
Yeah, I think, again, when you think about revenue bucket,
Mm-hmm.
The TV media partner, you certainly wouldn't go backwards. You'd stay the same per institution. Now, the other buckets, right? The CFP. So, the new CFP and how when they get into year 13, how they distribute monies. Will they do it a flat rate per conference? Well, if they do that, right, then the more teams you have in the conference, the less distribution per institution. Or do they go to almost kind of like the men's basketball NCAA tournament, and where there's a per institution value? So that remains equal amongst at least the Autonomy 5 institutions, and so that is still under discussion. And then with the units piece, you don't know how that's going to fall, right? You're obviously keeping units from schools that left, but now you have new members coming in, and so you're having to share those units. And are they those schools that you're bringing in, are they bringing in units, right? Are they competitive in basketball? Are they adding to the pool of units? And so to speak, are they paying for themselves when you think about the men's basketball revenue distribution?
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Athletic Director of Athletics, with us, 365 Sports. If you had a wish list, you have a pavilion that you can just see it like in front of our eyes as it continues to grow, like McLean Stadium, like the track and field facility, like what you're doing with the football ops and also the enlargement of the indoor. Is there one facility for any sport in particular that if you could just close your eyes and poof, you could make one, what would it be?
Well, I mean, appreciate the question, and I think the one that's been completed, McLean Stadium. I think the thing that did for I think Baylor athletics. Certainly, obviously, having an on-campus football facility, all of that, right? But I think it sets the standard for all other facilities thereafter. And I think you see that, with the Clyde Hart track and field facility. I think you're going to see that with the pavilion, the Foster Pavilion, once that's completed, and the Allison Development Center. Those two together, and I think you're going to see that with the Fudge Football Development Center. So, I would certainly put, McLean Stadium in the, top 5% in terms of football facilities in the country when you think about amenities and just the way the seating bowl was constructed. But I think you're going to see, very, very similar with the Foster Pavilion. I think that's going to be a top 5%. I think the Fudge Football Development Center is going to be a top 5% in the country.
Will there be renovations in the Farrell Center? I know you added the women's locker room for volleyball. I think even might have been right during or after COVID, and that was really nice. But will that pretty much remain the same, or are you going to tweak that up to specifically fit volleyball and everything else you would put inside that facility?
Yeah, it's going to become the permanent home, obviously, for volleyball, and volleyball is really, it's become their permanent home over the last couple of years, and we found a way to be able to share with men's and women's basketball and volleyball. But it'll also become the permanent home of our 8-time national champion acrobatics and tumbling team, and so we're going to have to make some tweaks and changes. We're going to have to make some tweaks and changes when we think about the student athlete services area. When you think about locker room and team lounge, theater, sports medicine, you think about, men's and women's basketball, their rosters are, 13 to 15. And you have acrobatics and tumbling, roster size of about, it can vary somewhere between 40, 45. And so, how do we do that? How do we accommodate that? And then, do we change up anything in terms of the seating bowl within, and do we have different seating bowl configurations for a volleyball match versus an acrobatics and tumbling match, because they're two different sports to watch. So all of that has been discussed. All of that is in process, meaning we're trying to figure out how we best can do that, and at what time can we do that, because that's additional funding that is required, and so we're going to continue to raise money for capital projects, and that would certainly be one of them.
Where does facilities and the importance of those rank compared to maybe a few years ago, pre-NIL era versus post-NIL era? Because I'd have to imagine that a lot of the people you go to help spruce up, the Farrell Center or to build whatever pavilion or, whatever it may be, those are also, a lot of times the same people you go to for other things. And I know the NIL is very much a work in progress on how all that works, Mac, but just in terms of the priorities, are facilities still where they were, or have they slipped down the list a little bit?
Yeah, Craig. It's a fascinating question. It's a question that we've been discussing here within the athletic department, and I think the answer could change or possibly change in terms of the lens, what lens you're looking through. So if you're looking through the student athlete lens, prospective student athlete lens, I would probably say it's shifted, and so at least for right now, and I think that's really important to say, at least for right now, I think probably name, image, and likeness is a little bit more important to prospective student athletes than the facility. And I think people could then say, well, if that's the case, why are we even worried about facility? But I think from an infrastructure standpoint, and I think from a long ball standpoint, not just short term but long term vision, I think from at least our lens, administratively, coaching, right, that the facility piece is still extremely important, and I think will be when we maybe get out of this bit of chaos that we're in with name, image, and likeness. So it's a great question. It's one we've asked ourselves. If we were to go back in time and maybe name, image, and likeness and building new facilities mirrored up, would we have made the decision to say, hey, let's put facility on hold and let's just focus, everybody on name, image, and likeness? I think our answer would have been no. We still need to go through with facility because, again, that's certainly, there's short-term gain there, but there's huge long-term gain. And again, I think name, image, and likeness still, what it looks like 2 years from now is a little bit unpredictable.
Mack, last question, if you don't mind, is baseball had a tough transfer just a couple, like yesterday, in fact. It looked like it might be the face of the program, and there's been attrition. Obviously, Mitch is trying to play catch up, and it hasn't been easy. Are they in a position, in your opinion, is that one of the sports that might not yet be ready to compete with NIL?
Yeah. So, your question obviously is timely, and Coach Thompson and Chad Jackson, who's a sport program administrator for baseball, we've had that conversation, we've talked about it over time, and probably talked about it, more seriously, starting back a couple weeks. And, I think that's a program that, just given the landscape that, we're gonna have to look closely at. And I do think, and we've identified them, but I do think we've got, some former players and donors that have a great love for baseball. And, so we're doing all we can. And, I think that, again, a challenging time for Mitch, but, we knew, that, this, rebuild, this turnaround, that we were going to be faced with some of these challenges. And, there's no better person to lead, in the midst of these challenges than Mitch. And, we're gonna take a couple setbacks, and we've all talked about it. Sometimes you got to take a couple steps backwards before you move forward. And, you never know, the one or two individuals that have left in terms of, roster and or transfer portal, and because of name, image, or likeness, you never know. You never know how that impacts, and that also opens up an opportunity for two more student athletes. So Mitch will navigate it, and we are committed to to being nationally relevant, competing at the highest level in baseball, like we once have. And again, we'll do that in due time. And I'm not sure that you can turn it around in a year, but and we've told Mitch, you have time. Do not put that pressure on yourself. Let's make sure we do it the right way and make sure that when we do it, it's sustainable. And so he has time, and I'm really, really confident and at peace about the future of our baseball program.
Thank you very much, Mack. Appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of the week and also into your vacation time. We'll see you at Big 12 Media Days here pretty soon as well.
Sounds great. Great to be with you both. And is Paul still on his honeymoon? How long do you get for a honeymoon?
You talk about milking something a little bit longer than it needs to be. My God. This is...
He'll be back next week.
Yeah, he's flying in apparently like overnight Sunday. He will be on the set Monday morning. That is something we've communicated. Yeah, I'm that kind of boss.
Okay. All right. I just wondering if this was a time limit or just unlimited. So that's all.
No, it seems to be.
All right.
Thank you, Mack.
There's no official deadline, but eventually something's going to have to give.
Yeah, eventually, he just won't get paid. That's it. But he probably doesn't care about that. Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics at Baylor University. Paul, yes, he and Amanda